I am going to read the resolution that the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations adopted um, not too long after the raid on the FBI. But again, we are committed. We are 100% behind our chairman. An attack on him is an attack on us. That's how everybody involved with the Black is Back Coalition and the Uhuru movement should be perceiving things. It is an attack on us, but it's also an attack on the broader liberation, encouraging people to sign the Black is Back resolution condemning the FBI attacks on the Uhuru movement. And this was we passed this resolution. This was August 20, 2022. But it says the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations stands in full solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement in the wake of the July 29, 2022 terrorist raids by the Federal Bureau of Investigation on several offices and residences of the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement in Florida and Missouri. We recognize these raids as consistent with the historical attacks on the African liberation movement by the FBI and U.S. federal government going back at least 100 years, with the movement led by Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, and continuing through the decades to include attacks and charges made against Paul Robeson, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1950s, and many others. We are fully aware of the counterintelligence program known as COINTELPRO, initiated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation against the African liberation movement domestically, and established as its goals: one, prevent the coalition of militant Black national groups. In unity, there is strength, a truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of Black nationalist groups must be the first step toward a real Mau Mau, Black Revolutionary Army in America, the beginning of a true Black revolution. Two, and this is coming from the FBI, their points that I'm reading. Two, prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a Messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines of nonviolence and embrace Black nationalism. Carmichael has the necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way. Three, prevent violence on the part of Black nationalist groups. This is a primary importance and is, of course, a goal of our investigative activity. It should also be a goal of the counterintelligence program to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them before they exercise their potential for violence. Four, prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to three separate segments of the community. The goal of discrediting Black nationalists must be handled tactfully in three ways. You must discredit those groups and individuals to, first, the responsible Negro community. Second, they must be discredited to the white community, both the responsible community and to liberals who have vestiges of sympathy for militant Black nationalists simply because they are Negroes. Third, these groups must be discredited in the eyes of Negro radicals, the followers of the movement. The last area requires entirely different tactics from the first two. Publicity about violent tendencies and radical statements merely enhances Black nationalists to the last group. It adds respectability in a different way. Five, a final goal should be to prevent the long-range growth of militant Black organizations, especially among youth. Specific tactics to prevent these groups from converting young people must be developed. And then our resolution goes on to say, we recognize that it was in line with the stated long-range goals of the FBI that former head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, J. Edgar Hoover declared in 1969 that the Black Panther Party represented the greatest threat to the internal security of the U.S. since the United States Civil War. It is the anti-Black history of the FBI that informs our stance of solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party, an organization that has dedicated its 50-year history to the liberation of African people globally from the clutches of colonial slavery, and our opposition to the July 29th 2022 FBI attack on the African People's Socialist Party. We support the demand, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, and call on Africans and all who unite with the right of the African People's Socialist Party and our people to advocate and organize for the total liberation and unification of Africa and the forcibly dispersed African nation globally. Finally, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations calls on all Africans and justice-loving people to join the Hands Off Uhuru campaign denouncing the July 29th, 2022 attack on the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Please go to handsoffuhuru.org to find out more about how you can stand up against the repressive actions of the FBI and the United States government. Take a stand to support the freedom of speech presumably conferred on African people within current U.S. borders by the constitutional rights that are said to be guaranteed to us following our formal emancipation from U.S. domestic colonial slavery. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, Black is back, and then there's a petition form that you can sign, and you can submit it. You can submit it via our website. And also, since we adopted that resolution, as we know, that 3 members of the Uhuru movement were indicted this year, one of them being Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the other 2 being people involved in the Uhuru Solidarity movement. They are Penny Hess and Jesse Neville. And we, of course, say drop the charges and hands off the Uhuru movement. And we stand in solidarity with all oppressed people fighting against colonialism. We know that they have been going after people who have been fighting against what's been going on in Atlanta with the Stop Cop City. There have been people arrested within the Black Lives Matter movement for protesting. And now we learned of more arrests just recently with people who were protesting in terms of the sanctions against Cuba. And that was our sister Gail Walker, and there were other comrades with her, I believe, and they were calling for the United States to stop the sanctions, to lift the sanctions against Cuba. And they were arrested because they wanted to meet with Menendez, and they were arrested. So they are coming after people hard, and we stand in solidarity with all of our comrades.